Okay, so now I'm going to be explaining how to set up the WordPress testing environment. So the first step, it depends a lot on which operating system you are using. It depends, for example, it's very different if you are using macOS or Windows or even Linux. But in this case, if I'm going to be using Windows, that is probably one of the most difficult configurations of all, because it doesn't have like you can use Windows directly, but I prefer to use WSL, that stands for Windows Subsystem Linux, because it's going to be much similar to what we are going to find on other systems like Linux or macOS. Okay, so first of all, what you need to install is the WSL. You can go into this URL and follow these instructions one by one. It's pretty simple because first you have to enable certain properties from Windows. It's explained in this article, but once you have installed everything, it's like certain modules. Once you have installed everything, you have to go into the shell, the terminal, and here you have to write ws install. No? In my case, I prefer to use Ubuntu for the distribution, but you can select whichever you prefer. You like. There are not every distribution is available at first. You have to do a little tweaking, but if you want to keep it simple, go for Ubuntu, and it will be pretty much straightforward. In my case, I have already installed it. Okay, so the next one you have installed it, you have to run like this command, ws ubuntu, like this, and it will run the shell, no, for Ubuntu. The thing here is that you can also, once you have installed it, you can also go into this arrow and you can select this here. For me, it's much more comfortable. So this is the first step. Once you have get to this position, now the second step is installing Docker. Okay, Docker desktop. So you go into the website of Docker, and it will be pretty straightforward. You will get to install the Docker desktop software, and once you have installed it, you have to go into the configuration. Here in general, you have to go and select this one, use the WSL2 base engine, and once you have selected this, you have to restart this, then go into resources, and here go into this tab, WSL integration, and select this. It's probable that everything is already ticked, because it's done like automatically, but just to make sure that everything is in order, you have to select these two options. Okay, so once you have Docker desktop installed, you have to go back to your WSL, to your, let's say from now we're going to be talking about Ubuntu. Okay, so let's go back to Ubuntu and check if Docker is installed with Docker, for example, Docker PS. And if you see this, you have Docker installed. Okay, so the next step is installing npm. It's probable that you have any certain npm installed in your system by default, but personally I like to check it again. So from this point, I will go like sudo apt update first. You put the password you selected when you install your Ubuntu. Okay, and once you have updated, you can go and install, and I have it installed already, but you can do it, you know, like in this case I already have installed it, so it will install the npm and everything will run. Okay, so next step is to check your version for npm. So you go, you check it. In this case, this one is okay. Okay, the 10.8 for now in 2025. But it's very important also to check the Node.js version, because generally by default it's installed with the Node.js 24, but WordPress works better with the Node.js version 20 right now in 2025. Okay, so check for the version. In my case, I have already installed the 20, but if you don't have, if you have any other, for example 24, what you have to do is install N, that is the, for me is the fastest package manager. So go with, for in this case, sudo npm install gn, okay, and once you have installed it, you simply do sudo ne20, okay, and in this case, sorry, no, not sudo, directly n20, okay. In this case, you need, maybe you are going to find some errors. What I do is you have to go to check the bash rc file and select these two exports, okay. With these two exports, you will be able to install any version with N. So now you can go with ni20 and it will install. And if you run only N, you will see all the versions you have. For example, I can install also ni21, okay. And now if I select N, I can select any of the two versions, okay. In this case, I'm going to select the 20. So in this point, we have pretty much everything installed. So now it's time to configure WordPress, okay? So we have to go into the WordPress GitHub repository. In this case, my recommendation is to fork it. Okay, you select here fork. I already have my own fork here. It will be your fork with your name, with your username. In my case, obviously, is this one. So you will have your own fork, okay. So basically, once you have your fork configured, you have to pick the URL. In this case, I recommend using this URL, not this one, the one with HTTPS node. Instead, use this one, because this one is direct with your. It doesn't matter, okay. I prefer to select this one, but in fact it doesn't matter. So for example, create a directory where you're going to store all your WordPress code, and in my case, for example, this src WordPress, for example, you can select whatever you want, and then you go with, I don't know if I have git installed. Yes, I have it by default. If not, you do sudo install apt install git, and it will install the git. So once you have it, git clone, you git clone with the URL, okay. And I can install it now because with this URL, because I need the SSH key, okay. I'm not going to explain how to configure it. You have to go into your configuration section in your GitHub and follow some steps. Also, you have to generate a new SSH key here. So to keep it simple for now, I'm going to clone the HTTPS one, that is simpler. But as I say, personally, once you have configured the SSH one, it's much better in general, okay. And you can work with private repositories and all that. But for now, for simplicity, I'm going to go with the HTTPS version, okay. So it's going to take, if I do this git clone like I'm doing now, it's going to take a little bit, because it has to download the whole repository, okay. So it's going pretty fast. I thought that it was going to be a little slow, but it's going pretty fast. But generally, depending on your connection or the time of the day you are doing this, it can take a lot. So ideally, you can select here depth, like this, no, depth and 1. So it will install only the latest commit, no. So now that you have installed the WordPress, once you have cloned the repository, you go into the folder that it has created, And now it's very simple. You have to run 4 commands that are going to be your commands that you are going to be using this command all over again. Okay, so it's important to memorize them. The first one is npm install. Okay, this is probably the one that is going to take the longest because it has to install all the dependencies that WordPress uses. Basically, this command is not the one that you are going to be using the most, because it's very rare that the dependencies are changed, but it's good to do it once in a while, okay, in case anything has changed. And as I say, this is the one that may take a little bit longer than the other three, sorry. Now the next one, here in the repository, you can find all the instructions, the ones that I'm explaining here. Basically, it says that you have to install Node.js. In Windows, you can use Choco, but Choco is only useful if you are using the Windows installation that we are not using here. We are using the WSL, the Linux, no, the Ubuntu. It's very important to differentiate this because it can cause a lot of confusion. No, in this case, this one, that the PowerShell one, no, this is the Windows installation, but the Ubuntu one is the WSL2 installation or Ubuntu one. Okay, they are different, and once we install our IDE, in this case we are going to be using Tray. You can use VS Code or whatever you want, but once you have configured your WSL, it's going to be different when you connect with your IDE. So this is important, okay? So in this case, you are not going to be using Choco. You are using apt install npm, as I said before, no? And then it will say to install Docker desktop. No, we have done it already. And finally, once you have Docker and Node.js and everything, you have to run these 4 commands. We have already run this one. Okay, we are going to go with the second one. In this case, is npm run build dev. Okay, you can run, in this case there are 3 variants of build. This one is what this is going to do is installing the dev version, okay, the development version, but it's going to be like fixed, okay, so you don't have to keep refreshing it over and over again. This is specific for, especially for updating the JS, the JavaScript. So for example, if you're going to be changing JavaScript files, you have to keep running all the time. Every time you change the JS file, you have to run again the npm run build dev. Okay, so how you can do it so you don't have to keep running this, that it takes a little bit. No, as you can see, it takes, like, in my computer is pretty fast, but maybe you have a slower computer, it may take a little longer. So how can you do it faster? Not faster, like only running once, it will take maybe 2-3 minutes, and then you don't have to run it all the time again, because it will run like a watch demo that it will refresh at the same time as you change your files. So for doing this, you remove the build and you leave this, like npm run dev. In this case, you only have to run it once, and then you leave the terminal open, and it will be refreshing every time you switch your JavaScripts, okay? But in this case, for this example, we only have to run it once, so we use the build dev as I've done, and once it finishes, we continue with the next command, that is npm run start. And now what it's going to do is to use Docker to pull all the images, and once all the images have been pulled, it will run all the containers based on those images, okay? And once we have this finished, this is one of the shortest steps, okay? It's not going to take much. As you can see, it's pretty fast. Once we have this, I forgot that maybe having Composer it's a good idea, but it's not very critical because by default this container already runs Composer by default, as you can see here. So some people like to run here Composer install, update or install, do it like before running the containers, but personally I don't really care, and I have not seen much different because it's going to create the vendor folder. Okay, so, and once we have done this, finally the last step is npm run install. Okay, this is pretty fast also, especially after a recent update that has upgraded this section a lot, and it's doing it very, very quickly. So once we have done all these 4 steps described here and run it, we will see that if we go into the localhost 8889, we will find our WordPress working, okay, with this environment. As we can see here, if we run docker ps, we will find all the 4 containers running. No, this one is the main PHP one, no, the one that is running WordPress directly. This is the MySQL. It's not running. I think it's not running MySQL. I think it's running MariaDB. And here we can find the port that is being used. So if we, for example, if we want to connect to the database with a client, with a database client, we have to use this port. Okay, this is the CLI. We can run also CLI commands. We want to speed up any process we like to use the CLI. We have to run like this command, no? npm run we can read all these documents after we have done this, because there are some valuable commands. Also, for example, this what it's going to do is reset everything, like destroy all the installation, and you can restart again with the command we did before, like start and install after this. But this is good, for example, if you want to start with a clean installation, okay, after you have been playing around with your WordPress. It's useful because sometimes if you work a lot with your WordPress installation, it can get to a point that is very dirty, and trying a patch can fail. So generally it's better to clean it and start from the beginning, okay? And after this, as I say, we can get into our administration like always, no? The user is admin and the password is password, okay? And pretty much the same as we are used to, no? So the interesting thing here is that finally we can load our repository that we have downloaded here, no, in Wordpress-Develop folder. But if we are using, for example, WSL instead of Windows, that is what I've been doing here, we have to connect to the WSL, okay? So in this case, if I'm not wrong, okay, I have to check to see how to connect to WSL with Tray, because I have not used it lately, but it's pretty simple. With VS Code is even more simple than this, because here in the bottom we can see a WSL connection, but with Tray it's also very simple, as I found now, because you can go here into Remote Explorer and select here. You might find SSH targets. You have to choose WSL targets, and then you can select the Ubuntu we have already installed and connect to it. Okay, it will open a new window, and with a new window here we can find what I was talking, like WSL Ubuntu. This means that now our tray, our IDE is connected to WSL, not to Windows, okay? Because WSL, as I said, is an internal system using Linux inside Windows. It's not the same. The folders, everything are in a different place to Windows. Okay, you can access directly to the folders inside WSL from Windows, but they are not like straightforward. No, they are not like in your unit, in your main unit. Okay, so once you have connected your WSL, now when you press open folder, it will show all the folders within your WSL, not within your Windows, not like your C drive. In this case, there is no C drive. You can find directly your WSL folder system. Okay, so we go into the directory I created, src WordPress-Develop. Okay, and now I have opened the WSL WordPress installation I've cloned with Git. Okay, so as we can see here, all the files from WordPress. The structure is, if you are new to this, the structure is a little different because this is the development build. Okay, so as you can see, to get into the files for WordPress specifically, you have to go into src, and then you can find here all the things. Okay, you want to, for example, you want to create a new plugin for testing, or let's say this one, no, like the Hello Dolly, that is the one that comes by default. Let's say I'm going to put, for example, Hello Dolly B2. Okay, and now if I go into the WordPress installation, just by modifying anything, it will update automatically. Okay, so it's very easy to update everything with this new format. Okay, so this is the first part to install your development environment. Okay, your testing environment. This is the best option compared to other options, for example, using local, or I don't know, FlyM or Laravel, Herd, all that. No, this is better because you're going to be working directly with the system that you are going to be using afterwards when, for example, if you want to send a patch. Okay, and also for downloading patches, it's going to be pretty simple. I will be explaining in the next video how to deal with patches and how to work in general with the whole system. Okay, and also I'm going to be explaining a little tweak that we can do if you want to work also with Gutenberg at the same time as we work with this environment. Okay, because this is going to be very useful. I found it from a post that was written by Western Router, and I've been using it since then, because you can integrate both WordPress and Gutenberg at the same time, and you can develop at the same time in the two systems. I'm going to be explaining this in the next video. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.